Hey guys, how's it going? Carl here from North Coast Constrictors. Welcome back to the channel. Today, I've got my boy Kratos out here. This is a reticulated python. He's a motley het albino reticulated python. Retics for me are more of a kind of like a hobby passion. I'm not a big retic breeder. I've got 4 retics, but my main breeding operation is ball pythons. So today, guys, I just want to touch on, I've made a couple of videos about breeding and setup, and there's a couple of, once you've made a video and you've downloaded it, it's on YouTube, I'll often go back and rewatch my videos. I have a habit of, putting videos on and not editing. Then I go back and see I've left something out or said, maybe something incorrectly. But then, so I either delete the video if it's too bad and then redo it, which is kind of what I'm doing now. So in one of my last videos, I was talking about setups. Now, it's very difficult to generalize and have a hard and fast setup rule when it comes to ball python breeding, because it all depends on your location in the world. It not just depends on your location in the world, but also your location in that country, in that part of the world. So you may live, like, for example, let's just use as a point of reference South Africa, where I live. There are different types of climate in the seasons where I live, which is on the northeast coast in Belito, as opposed to what, like, summer will be different here. We'll have very, very wet, rainy weather in summer, yet it's very dry and hot. It's also hot here, but it's very dry and hot in Cape Town, where it's not raining and there's no humidity. Whereas it's very, very humid here, but it's not humid in Cape Town, which is on the coast, but it's on the southern tip of Africa. In winter, it's very dry here in KwaZulu-Natal, Belito, on the northeast coast. Hardly any rain. However, in Cape Town, in the same country, but right at the tip of South Africa, in winter, it's very, very wet and it rains a lot. Okay, so, and, then let's take another major city, another hub in Africa, which is Johannesburg. It's very, very cold. It's much colder. It's inland. From where I live to Johannesburg, from the coast to Johannesburg, is about 600 kilometers. And you go inland and you go up altitude, approximately 1.7 to 2 kilometers in altitude. I think the highest altitude city in South Africa is 2.1 kilometers from sea level, and that is a town called Dalstrom. So all of these places will have different temperatures in summer, different humidity levels in summer, different temperatures in winter, and different humidity levels in winter and summer. And they'll also have their rainy seasons are different as well. Okay, as I say, in Cape Town, it's it's raining in winter, and in summer it's raining in KwaZulu-Natal, the Lowveld near the Kruger National Park. It's what we call the summer rains. Now, we all know that in South Africa, in the southern hemisphere, winter is June, July, August. It starts getting cooler in April and May, and then you can kind of say that's spring, and then obviously autumn, and then our winter is kind of like officially from the 1st of June. However, where I live, the climate is very temperate. So our summers are very, very hot, but our winters are not as cold as what it is inland. And you don't necessarily have to go all the way up to Johannesburg to start feeling a drop in temperature. A mere 50 kilometers inland from me, in, let's say, for example, Hillcrest, or maybe 120 kilometers, a little bit more inland from that in Pietermaritzburg, it's even colder. So, let's say it's it's winter and it is 7 o'clock in the morning. Here on the coast, it'll be a lot warmer, probably by a good 5 to 7 degrees than it would be in Hillcrest, and it'll be even colder in Pietermaritzburg. It also starts getting darker more quickly inland, and it also starts getting colder quickly. And so the guys that are actually a little bit closer, a little bit further away from the coast in South Africa, even up to Johannesburg, their winters, the onset of their winters and their temperatures drop quite drastically from about April. Whereas us guys on the coast, Durban, Richards Bay, Ballito, our temperatures will only really start dropping at the end of May. And our really coldest month is July, believe it or not. And it's still very cold in August, and it's bitterly cold inland, So this will definitely affect how you're going to do your breeding setup based on where you live in the country. Also, where I live in Durban and Ballito, I always refer to Ballito and Durban because it's kind of they're the two closest main hubs. I used to live in Durban. Everybody kind of knows Durban. Ballito is a town about 35 kilometers north of Durban, up north on the coast, also on the beach. That's where I live. It's very, very humid. And it's like a tropical environment, So in the middle of summer, we can experience temperatures well into the 40s. And between 40 and 40, I'm talking on an incredibly hot day, 40, 41, an average day is between 30 and 35 degrees Celsius in summer. Okay. Even in winter, although it's cold at night, the temperatures will drop, but like a very cold night will get into your single digits, but it'll be like your high single digits, like 8, 9, but it's usually around about the 10 maybe mark. Where up in Johannesburg, you'll hit 0 degrees and into your negative figures, like 0, -2, -3, -4, -5 even in winter. So your ambient temperatures that you set your snake room to in Joburg in the summer and in the winter are very different to what your ambient how you will control your temperature setup in here down on the coast, for example. You'll most certainly have to have your room, your air conditioner on heat in winter in Johannesburg to try and keep your temperatures. I like to keep my temperatures in this snake room between 26 and 28 degrees Celsius. No more than 28, no less than 26. That is during the day, and out of season also at night. Where I live though, the temperatures don't drop too drastically in winter. Now, it's pretty common knowledge that follicle development in females happens when it's cooler, and sperm production and testosterone production and etc. Healthy sperm is developed more in cooler temperatures with the males. Now, where I live in Durban, on the northeast coast, our winters are still pretty mild. So I will drop the ambient temperature in the room at night down to 24 degrees Celsius for May, June, and July. Okay, and I do that in May. I do it from 9 o'clock at night until 6 o'clock in the morning, and then June and July I'll do it for 12 hours, 6 to 6. My hotspots out of season on the tubs inside, and I only adjust my temperatures on my breeding tubs. My hotspots hover around the 32 degree mark, 32 and a half out of season, a maximum of 33 degrees. I will not let a tub ever get over 33 degrees on the hotspot. This is out of season. And the cool front part of the tub is usually about a degree off from the ambient temperature in the room. So if let's say if the ambient is 26 degrees, the ambient temperature inside the tub is going to be around 26, 27 degrees, where the hot spot at the back is going to be anywhere between 31 and 33, give or take. It will range depending on how big your rack is, where you've got your probe, and there's always going to be a difference from your top rack to your bottom rack, and then the middle rack is, because heat rises. So in winter, I drop my hotspots on my tubs around about the 4 or 5 degree Celsius, even up to 6 degrees Celsius. But that is because of how cold it may get that night. Okay, so I'll drop it on the thermostat, like approximately 4 degrees at the moment in May. 4 degrees I'll drop it at night, and then June and July I'll drop it 5 degrees on the hotspot from what the temperature setting is. As I say, out of season, I keep my temperatures around about the 32 and a half degrees. When I start pairing up and I start dropping my temperatures, my temperature on my hotspot is about 31 and a half to 32 degrees Celsius, maximum of 32. I try and keep it a little bit cooler. And the reason for that is obviously to stimulate sperm and promote sperm, healthy sperm, testosterone in the males, and to promote follicle growth in the females. There are certain parts of the country where just the outside temperature, like in Joburg, for example, really there is no need to drop your temperatures in your tubs. Just the ambient temperature in your rooms alone, you can do it. There are, and as I've said in many of my previous videos, a lot of correct ways that are different to breed ball pythons. There are some parts of the country where you cool, and you have to cool because the climate is that much warmer, and you don't want the snakes to be in a constant state. You need that onset of winter to kick them into the breeding mode. So where I live, we not everyone does, but most of the guys that breed in my area, we cool temperatures for 3 months, and then from the 1st of August we bring the temperatures back up again, and we only drop the temperatures at night. I do believe that this is practiced in other parts of the world as well, and to name a few breeders that do this, some top names that you guys would have heard of: Justin Kabolka, Brian Barczyk, Kevin McCurley, Brian Gundy. These are old school breeders, and they drop their temperatures at night in the breeding season, and then for a couple of months, and then they raise the temperatures back up out of breeding season. Not out of breeding season, but out of winter. But they've been pairing their snakes, and they'll continue to pair even though they've stopped, even though they raise their temperatures up. So for May, June and July, I'll drop my temperatures, but in August I'll bring them up. But I'll still be introducing males to the females August, September, October, November, until I see an ovulation. The guys that live inland where it gets cooler faster, like for example April, they'll start pairing up in April, and whereas I'll only start pairing up in May. I only started pairing up my snakes 2 weeks ago at the beginning of May. I was going to wait until the beginning of June, but the temperatures were correct for me to drop, and I was looking at certain behavior of my snakes, my females mostly. A lot of belly rolling, a lot of exposure, rolling over, bowl wrapping, especially for the proven breeders. You don't want to miss that window. So I was, okay, great. There are certain females that I have not introduced males to yet. I have, when I say I've started my pairings, I have got on average 4 females, maybe 5 per male. So I've only just had my 2nd week of pairing, so not all of the females have even been paired yet. There are some females that are only going to be introduced to a male middle of June, end of June. Those females are the ones that are still eating and getting up to size. Some females have gone off food and are well over 2,500 grams, and their follicles are developing nicely and they've been introduced to males. And then the other smaller females, which are hovering around the 1,500 gram mark, they haven't been introduced to any males yet, and they are still eating. I am still offering food every week to my breeding females, even the ones that seem to have been going off food. But what I've done is I've reduced the prey size, because obviously as the follicles grow, it takes up space inside their stomach. And this boy's pretty comfortable where he is. So guys, what I'm saying is there is no hard and fast rule to breeding. There is no just one way to do it when it comes to ball pythons, or even retics for that matter. But that's obviously this is mostly for ball python breeders, and it's for the new breeder. Now, I've said many times that this is a journey for me. It's my second year now in the hobby. I've changed things up from my very first season, where I didn't have a temperature controlled environment. I didn't have a temperature controlled room. I didn't have an air conditioner. So my ambient temperatures in the room were exactly what the temperatures were outside. So if it was a 40-degree day outside, the ambient temperature in the room was, pretty much close on that. So what will happen now, and that's in the middle of summer. So now in the middle of summer, in my snake room with the aircon, the ambient temperature in the room will never get more than 28 degrees Celsius. So that has been refined. Also in the winter now, where it would drop down to, let's say, 10 degrees, let's use 10 degrees as a round figure for the middle of winter for my area, the ambient temperature would drop down to 10 degrees, where now it won't drop down to less than 24, maybe 23 and a half, 24 degrees. So that big difference in ambient temperature now, we've narrowed that gap quite a lot. What I did do last season on my hotspots is I dropped the temperature 3 degrees only. So from 32 degrees on the hotspots, I dropped it down to 29 degrees at night. This is only for the adults, for the breeding females and males. And then during the day, I would bring it back up to 32 degrees. The only difference that I've done now is I'm dropping it 1 or 2 degrees cooler than that. And when I bring my temperature back up, instead of bringing it up to 32 and a half, I'm bringing it up to 31 and a half. I try and keep it as close to 31 and a half degrees as possible, a maximum of 32. And this is to prevent females from laying slugs. If it's too hot, you can get slugs. And also heat kills sperm. So even if the male has inseminated the female, with the sperm inside the female, if the female's too hot lying on a hot spot, it will kill that sperm and it will not fertilize the egg. So I try to keep the hot spots all the way through for the rest of the breeding season, right up until that female has ovulated and laid eggs at around about the 31 and a half degree Celsius mark. So that's just how I do it, guys. That's how I'm doing it this season. It's a slight change up from last season. I'm not saying that this is the way that you must do it. Please check out your area, your geographical location, what your highs are in summer, what your lows are in summer at night, what your highs are in winter, and what your lows are in winter at night. And you also must check what your humidity levels are, because your breeding season, it's imperative that you factor in your humidity and your temperatures. So like right now, for example, I've got a temperature control, not a controller, it's a temperature monitor here. This is the display, and then I've got the 2 probes for it here. This probe here picks up the temperature, the ambient temperature of the room, and this probe here will pick up the humidity in this room. And as it stands, the temperature in this room is 26.8 degrees Celsius, and the humidity is sitting at 78%, which is great. And this is in an air-conditioned room, and we are on the 18th of May. So we are really heading towards winter now. So Tonight at 9 o'clock, I'll come into this room, I'll grab my temperature, my air conditioner controller, I'll drop the temperature down to 24 degrees on the air conditioner, and then only on my breeding racks where I've got my females, I will drop the temperature 4 degrees Celsius on the hot spots, and I'll do that up until the 1st of June. On the 1st of June, I'll drop it 1 more degree for June and July, so I'll drop it 5 degrees just for those 2 months. By then, most of the females, they'll all be locking up. Well, some of them would have gone off food. Most of the females that we've locked up now, they're ravenous and they're eating food, they're smashing food. And that is the reason why I'm only dropping my temperatures at 9 o'clock at night now for May, is because I feed at about 7:30, 8. So I still want the tub to be warm. From June and July, just for those 2 months, I'll be cooling 6 to 6. I'll do a 12-hour cooling period, and to simulate basically the middle of winter, because those will be your longest nights and your shortest days. And it also works on light. Your snakes are light sensitive. Okay, they're triggered off by sunrise and sunset. So all the lights will go out at 9 o'clock at night or 6 o'clock at night. I actually turn my lights off around about the 8, 9 o'clock at night mark. But at 5, 6 in the morning, I turn the lights on. So they are light sensitive. So guys, that's pretty much just a guideline on how I do it. And I do that based on just the particular region that I live in KZN, KwaZulu-Natal, in Belito. And that's because winter for us is a dry season. It's not rainy, it's not wet. Summer, and that's when we're pairing up. It's dry, it's cooler, and because the temperatures are quite moderate, I cool the hot spots to stimulate follicle growth on the females and sperm production on the males. There are many parts of the world in the country where the temperatures are completely different, the climate is different, and that setup would be wrong for that part of the country or that part of the world. So I'm not telling somebody in Canada that this is how you should breed your snakes. I'm not telling somebody in London how they should breed their snakes. And I'm certainly not telling anybody, some of the top breeders in South Africa, most of the top breeders in South Africa are up in Johannesburg, where it's incredibly cold in winter and it gets cold sooner. And they have a different breeding setup and it works for them. There's also top breeders here in KZN where I live that follow the same breeding cycle and routine that I'm following. I'm basing mine on their routine because it's tried and tested. They've been doing it 15, 20 years. I've researched it a lot. Have got multiple points of reference to go back on. I've watched thousands of hours of YouTube videos specifically pertaining to climate, area, geographical location based on where I live, and cross-referenced it with other breeders to get to the result and the stage where I am now in my ball python breeding project. It is a difference and a change from last year's setup. So last year wasn't great for me, but I did have some success and I did have some failure. I do think in part it was because my temperatures were wrong and because I didn't have a temperature controlled environment for the snakes. So they were pretty much at the mercy of the hotspots in the tubs. And I was also a novice. I was a first time breeder. And not only that, I had only 8 females to breed. So, you know, and then actually another thing which I think really messed up my breeding season was I had to move house right between when my snakes ovulated or just before they ovulated. I had been locking up for about 4 months, 3 to 4 months, and I had to move house, which means I had to move all my snakes from one house into another house about 20 minutes away. I had to pack them all into boxes. I had to take them out their racks and move into a new house. Where I am now is a new house. And I really think that because all of my adult females locked up, and unfortunately I only had 2 ovulations. I think, and a lot of those females that got really, really big, the others that were locked up, I think they reabsorbed their follicles. And I think that was partly due to the fact that I moved and I interrupted them, very finicky snakes, and I moved to a new house, and that whole move probably threw them off. And also, I didn't have an air conditioner during that time. I put an air conditioner in this room about 4 or 5 months ago. Okay, so these snakes are now, well, not this, well, yes, this one, but this is not a breeding ball python. This is just a baby teenager retic. But all of these snakes here now are very, very used to this setup, this climate, this temperature, this humidity, and well, I'm just holding thumbs and hoping for the best for this upcoming breeding season. And yeah, you know, I'm still learning. There's lots of guys that are commenting, giving me feedback, messaging me privately, asking me a lot of questions about breeding and setups, which is why I think it was important to make this video, because it's very difficult for me to give advice to breeders who don't live in the same climate as I do. It's not necessarily how outdoors is going to work for them. I don't even really know. This is my second season. You know, one of the things about this channel that I've made very clear is that it's a journey. It's the North Coast Constrictors journey from being a new breeder, going into being an intermediate breeder, you know, getting my name out there, and hopefully one day a breeder with a very good name that produces very good quality snakes. I have got excellent snakes in my collection. The really, really top genes that I have in my collection are mostly yearlings and sub-adults that are planned for 2023 and 2024. That is where I will be producing incredibly valuable and beautiful recessives, multi-gene combination recessives, which I have pre-planned 3-4 years in advance and purchased the snakes as hatchlings for those. But I also have this year approximately 40 adult females to pair up. Some of them are just very average genes, and some that have got incredible genes. If you go back and you watch some of my YouTube videos and go and see what I'm pairing up this year, you'll see one of the big projects that I'm working on is the Exantic Pod project, which is the Lightning Pod. Lightning Pod is MJ line, but I'm doing Exantic VPR. And we're also we are on the Dreamsicle project, which is Lavender Albino Pod. And then we've got the Desert Ghost project. I have got a Desert Ghost combination where the male and the 2 females that I'm pairing to, if I get the visual that I'm aiming for, the females are 100% het with a combination of complete dominant genes. The male is a single gene Desert Ghost. If I produce the visual of what I'm going for, I will be the first in South Africa to produce it. If you've watched my videos previously, you'll know what that combination is. It's Pastel Bamboo Desert Ghost. That hasn't been produced here in South Africa yet. Pastel Desert Ghost, yes. Bamboo Desert Ghost, yet, but not Pastel Bamboo Desert Ghost. So that is what I'm aiming for this season. And then next season, it's Clown Pod project, but with other genes, Desert Ghost with other genes, Pod with other genes. I mean, we've got a lot going on, and that's for another video. So guys, yeah, this just wanted to touch on the breeding setup, and just to make it clear to all you guys out there, especially the South Africans, and if you're watching from abroad, please do your research on your breeding, on your setup, and whether or not you actually need to cool or even need to cool. It's not necessary in certain parts of the country. It's not necessary in other parts of the world. I'm just really talking about where I live, and I'm giving you my experience, and I'm doing me. If you just, you know, I've always said, I've got a little motto: you do you. and what works for you is cool, and if it works and it's different to the way I do it, and even if you live next door to me, carry on doing it. You've obviously got a formula that works for you, and bravo to you, mate, and go for it. So guys, that's about it from us. The weekend is approaching. I'm busy working. I'm having a look to see which snakes we are going to be pairing up this. I've got my list. I'll just have to choose now the males with which females. I've got a couple of females that are going into blue that were planned for this weekend, so we're going to move them into the rotation later on in the rotation, probably in 2 weeks time. They'll start locking up because I won't pair snakes while they are in the blue, the males as well. And yeah, I hope to make a YouTube video in a couple of days time when I've got a bit of a gap, maybe on the weekend, where I'll show you some of the cool projects that we're going to be working on this year, and I'll pull out some of the males and the females so that you can see. Anyway, guys, from myself and old Kratos here, my motley het albino retic boy, who is on a ball python video, so he should be feeling very special. It's over and out from us, and we'll catch you on the next video. If you enjoy this content and you want to see more of it and follow the journey, join the journey with us, please hit like and subscribe, and you can look forward to seeing some really cool new videos coming up in the future. Anyway, guys, that's it from me. Cheers.